Welcome back to the Cartridge Twins, where today we're going to take a look at possibly the most interesting, maybe even most questionable addition to the Nintendo Switch Online with the game Quest for Camelot. Is Quest for Camelot some shovelware added to the Nintendo Switch Online? Was anyone asking for this game to be added? Is it even worth playing? Let's try to answer some of those questions and more today on the Cartridge Twins. Quest for Camelot, a Titus Software developed game published by Nintendo back in 1998, is a game I never would have thought would pop up on the Nintendo Switch Online, yet here we are. I didn't know anything about this game other than it was a pretty quick playthrough, and that is what convinced me to give it a shot. In this game, you set out on a quest to save the Kingdom of Camelot, an age-old tale, but with a new twist. Sir Ruber, I don't know how to say the name, but either way, has stolen King Arthur's magic sword Excalibur. To me, the most unique aspect of this game is you, the player, control the female antagonist Kaylee. That's a familiar sounding name. This game is from the Warner Bros. Animated film Quest for Camelot, and I almost hesitate to say it, it's a very top-down Zelda-like adventure, just more mediocre. Think of this game as a poor man's Link's Awakening. There's some quirky characters, the inventory works similarly, and there is some diversity in the boss battles. One major difference, though, is the ability to level up your sword as you continually defeat enemies, which I felt was a nice touch, though it feels underutilized like much of the other elements in this game. For me, the biggest thing is the game fun. I would say, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a pretty simple game, but no matter your skill level, I think there's some fun to be had. That doesn't mean the game isn't without its quirks. For example, hit detection is iffy. Whether it's attacking or being attacked, it is definitely not the greatest. Also, the items you gain along the way often feel useless, and most of the time, if not all the time, the boss battles are pretty easy to cheese. So if you get that boss locked into a corner and you just start swiping away, I found that to be the most effective way to beat them. Plus, once you beat the boss, you're kind of left standing there like, okay, where do I go next? And my suggestion to you is just walk around the walls of the boss area, and eventually a little black door, if you can call it a door, will open up. The next thing I feel like I have to mention is the save mechanic. It's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, because saving is actually an item in your inventory, and you need to spend 30 gems just to save your game. I didn't really mind this, as eventually you collect plenty of those gems, and otherwise the gems themselves kind of feel useless. Plus, if you're not a fan of that save system, thanks to the Nintendo Switch Online, you can just use that save function instead and save yourself some of the headache. So in this way, it's a much easier hop in and play type of game. You don't feel as much of the need to find the perfect spot to save so that you don't forget where you're at and what you're doing in the game. Plus, the layout of the game, it is a little bit repetitive in its 8 worlds. So if you just save at the end of each boss battle, which it does kind of have an autosave function if you play that way, then the saving isn't that big a deal, and you always feel like you know what you're doing next. Is this the worst licensed game that I've ever played? Not by a long shot. As I previously mentioned, I did find some fun in this game. The cutscene images were a neat touch. I haven't seen the movie, but I'm guessing the cutscene stills are taken from the movie, correct me if I'm wrong. The characters that you encounter, they're pretty interesting. Especially the two-headed dragon, I don't remember their name. Thankfully, there's also some enemy diversity, and the story itself I found pretty interesting as it plays out. There's also some diversity in the gameplay. So for example, later in the game, you'll be able to have some like shoot 'em up style action while flying around on the dragon. I found this to be the most exciting part of the game, especially when in the boss battle segment. But again, it's nothing to write home about, but you know, it's just a nice break in the gameplay and something to look forward to as you work through the game. Considering the fact that this is a licensed handheld adventure from the 90s, I can't hate on it too much, as I mean, that's the era of gaming that I really grew up on. So if you try it out and play through at least the first of the 8 worlds, I think you'll get a pretty good idea as to whether or not you want to continue the adventure. It is a short game, taking me somewhere between 6 to 8 hours, and I feel it was time well spent, even with its flaws. So the music, it's not terrible, definitely gets repetitive, but I never really minded it. If you'd like to try out the music before committing to the game, well, guess what? We have the OST ready to go for you, and you can check out the link in the comments. Give it a shot. With all that being said, this is admittedly a pretty mediocre game. I was just glad that it's possible to play through with some interesting moments, and I didn't feel there was any crazy difficulty spike that kept you from continuing. Were there a little bit of unfair things throughout? Yeah, probably, but nothing that I remember being that big of an issue. It can be a touch cryptic at times, but if you rely on your in-game map, the cryptic nature is usually pretty easy to overcome. Plus, you can just look up a playthrough on YouTube if need be. If you decide to give it a try, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, and of course, remember, without video games, things do not seem to go as well. Before I go, I want to give a special shout out to Magic Emperor 2420. You convinced me to play this game by leaving your comment on our Quest for Camelot OST video, and you are exactly right in your assessment. It is a poor man's Zelda, so thank you. I played the game, I enjoyed it, and I'm glad you do as well.